Funding for this program is provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of the complete line of Cajun King seafood seasoning mixes and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Anytime, any place. In Louisiana, we're really cooking.
Louisiana. Hi, I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to the bayous of South Louisiana. Today, Cajun and Creole cooking holds a prime spot in the world of international cuisine, and I would love for you to know a little bit about it. So why not sit back, relax, and join me and some of my friends as we cook up another great Taste of Louisiana. Hello again and welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, and today we're cooking classical cuisine of the South. We're going to look at all the great dishes that we think of when we think of Southern cooking. But I tell you, I'm really excited today because I've got a great friend of mine who's coming to visit, and I guess I can say that Bill Day has in his hands one of the most extraordinary collections of artifacts dug up in Louisiana that belong to the Tunica Nation, the Tunica Indians, and he's going to be here to talk a little bit about the first Southerners, the Southerners who gave us just about all of the things that we hold true to life in Louisiana today, the Indians of the South. So we're going to talk about that and look at some of the treasures. But you know, there's a saying here in the South that we're American by birth, but Southerners by the grace of God. And when you look at all these great plantations that line the river roads of Louisiana and a lot of the great capitals of the South, we realize that much of our fabulous cuisine originated there. And then when we go into the great cities like the city of New Orleans and see the fabulous restaurant names posted up on the side of the buildings, just explaining the foods that's available there, the great grocery stores, the Italian origin of the muffalata sandwiches and the great garlics that we can certainly use in our cooking. Everywhere you look, storefronts and restaurant signs depicting what's available on the menu today. And hot boudin balls, where else would you see that? Or alligator on a stick with andouille shark other than South Louisiana. Pralines cooling in a storefront window with the fan blowing on them at Aunt Sally's, or fresh pasta available all year long. A courtyard from the Court of Two Sisters, one of the most famous restaurants. Yes, we're talking about Southern cooking from every imaginable angle, and signs telling you exactly what that cooking is going to be today. So whether it's sandwiches or whether it's oysters on the half shell, ice cold watermelon, all of those great things, a little beignet and cafe au lait at Café du Monde in the city of New Orleans, that's Southern cooking. But exactly what is Southern cooking? You know, if I was to ask anybody to define Southern cooking, they would probably say, well, let me see, the South. Isn't that group of states that seceded from the Union? Yeah, but we're back. We're back, and we love it here today. And they would say, isn't that poke salad and drop biscuits, turnip greens, red-eye gravy, grits, isn't that Southern cooking? And I'd say, yep, that sure is. But when I think of Southern cooking, I think of the South, an area of land as large as Europe, made up of as many different nationalities. I think of quail and blackberries, she crab soup, poached pears and bourbon. I think of the Kentucky Derby. I think of the great riverboat rides with, Huck Finn. There's a lot of things in the South that just kind of gets my creative juices flowing, and that's what I want to talk about today, all of the great, great dishes and the romance and the culture that makes up Southern cuisine. So one of the first dishes that I want to talk about today is a dish of New Orleans, a classical dish of the city of New Orleans, found on every restaurant menu and probably found on every stovetop in the homes of Bayou country, red beans and rice. Everybody's heard about red beans and rice. Chances are pretty good you may have even tasted some, but today I'm going to show you how to cook red beans and rice. And the way we begin, I'm going to fire up this little black pot of mine here because I want to get that pot real nice and hot to boil the beans, because when we talk about red beans, we're talking about the red kidney beans. I have these great red kidney beans. I picked through them to make sure that all of the dried beans or the discolored beans were removed. Now, these beans have soaked overnight in cold water because it cuts the cooking time down to about half. And by doing that, I know good and well that I can throw these on the stove, and in about an hour and a half, they'll be done and ready. Another thing about red beans and rice is the amounts of seasonings that we in Bayou Country actually attempt to flavor this dish with. And here's just a few examples of some of the things that we use. This is slab bacon, and when I talk about slab bacon, I mean the real thing. This is cooked in an old smokehouse with pecan wood and sugar cane to give it a great, great flavor. A hunk of this would always go into the black iron pots of the Cajuns cooking beans. Smoked ham hocks, again, you notice smoked flavor. Always smoked. That was given to us by the Germans in Louisiana. Andouille sausage. Definitely we had to have andouille sausage or smoked sausage in every pot of beans. Otherwise, why would it be red beans, rice, and sausage? I'm going to start off by putting a little butter or oil into the bottom of the pot. And then always, again, the seasonings. We have to begin with a lot of seasonings. So I'm going to put a lot of onions, celery, of course. Have to have good celery. And again, no measurements here. In Cajun country, we always just kind of throw in the pot until we think we have enough because we like our foods highly seasoned with fresh vegetable seasonings. Of course, garlic. A lot of nice garlic. Some people will actually put the heads of garlic. I'm putting a couple tablespoons of chopped garlic right down into the pot. And then I'll stir it around just a little bit, like that. And while that's sauteing, I'll cut up a couple nice pieces of smoked sausage. Now, this is andouille, which will flavor the beans. I'll put a couple pieces in. And then I'll put a little bit of the pickled pork, which is real nice and meaty, but it's got a nice salt flavor to it. I'll put a couple slabs right down in there. And this, of course, always a lot of salt or pickled pork around the house in the early days. And then I may even just throw in this ham hock for a lot of great flavor. So I'll move this right out of the way. And I'll stir these great seasonings and smoked meats all around the pot. And then the red beans. The red beans will go right in. And I've got, I guess, about a half a pound of red beans there. And I'll stir them in so that the beans can quickly saute with the vegetable seasonings as well as the smoked meats. Now, why is red beans so important in Louisiana history? Well, it's said that in the early days, the wives or the maids who actually worked at the homes would go outside in the backyard and fire up a big black iron pot full of boiling water to do the laundry on Monday mornings. And that was a great time to fire up a little black pot right next to the pot boiling the water for the clothes to fire up a big pot of red beans for lunch that day and possibly to continue eating for the rest of the week. So Monday was wash day in Louisiana. Monday was red beans and rice day because those two black iron pots could cook side by side and guarantee a good tasty meal for the Cajuns and Creoles of South Louisiana. Now into that, just a little water. Of course, you can use chicken stock. You can use any kind of stock that you would like. Look how hot that is. I told you we want a nice hot pot. And you can imagine now that it's coming to a boil, all of the onions and garlic and celery and smoked meats will slowly cook in this pot. Once it comes to a rolling boil, I will actually reduce it to simmer and allow this to cook for about an hour and a half or so, constantly stirring and creaming the beans. Now, I have a pot of beans already cooked right here. And you can see just how nice and creamy these beans are. Look how, as they've cooked, I've just kind of mashed the spoon along the side of the pot. All of the smoked meats are sitting right down in there, giving flavor to the beans. And we would always serve this right over a nice bed of steamed rice. And I think I have a plate of steamed rice right here. I want to show you exactly how we serve beans in South Louisiana. This is our Monday tradition, but I tell you, I know a lot of Cajuns and Creoles who eat beans 5 days a week, not just on Monday. I'll put a couple nice spoons of the creamy red beans. Look how nice and creamy this is. Most people would think that you'd cook the beans just until they became tender and that would be enough. But not in South Louisiana. We have to cream these beans first. I'll put them here. and put a couple pieces of nice smoked sausage right on top. This smoked sausage has been boiled to make sure that it's good and hot and done and tender. And then, of course, what else? A little green onions. We have to have that pretty fresh color, and maybe even a little parsley right on top of the beans. What a beautiful dish. Red beans and rice, a tradition, a classic in southern cooking of Louisiana. So I'll move the red beans right off to the front here. And I want to do another dish. I'll lower this so that we can have these beans for supper tonight. Another dish that I want to do for you now is, again, a real classic in southern cooking. In fact, is the state of Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas for sure, all barbecued chicken. Everybody loved barbecue. Where did it originate? Well, some say the West Indies, some say the Caribbean. But I tell you, everybody, I think, grilled or cooked meat on top of some kind of a wire or bamboo sheet for generations and generations, thousands of years. So I would say barbecue has been around for quite a long time. But we in South Louisiana, or in the South, certainly know how to barbecue. I'm going to begin by taking a nice little frying chicken here. This is a little couple-pound chicken. And what I'm going to do is cut it. I'll show you exactly how to cut it. You go right down the breastbone, and you open up the chicken, and then you take your knife and follow the backbone, just like that. Go straight through it, and you see how simple it is to cut this chicken right in half, just like that. And then you can break the leg bone and go right through it. Now, of course, you need a good sharp knife, naturally. And then the leg, take the leg off by going right through the back. Again, same thing here, right through the back. And it makes it very easy to quarter the chicken, and quarter chicken is probably best for barbecuing. So I'm going to take the chicken and put it right into this baking dish, because this is going to be an oven barbecued chicken. I want you to be able to do this no matter what part of the country you're in, no matter what time of year it is. If it's snowing outside, barbecue chicken right into the oven. The way we're going to do it, there you go. You see how nice those pieces quartered into this. Now, seasoning. I'm going to put naturally a little bit salt. I'm going to put just a touch more of salt. Use as much salt or as little as you would like. Of course, a little bit cracked black pepper. I always use cracked black pepper because it's an aromatic spice. It tastes and smells really nice. So I'll put it in here. Now, for some of the secrets to the seasoning. We're going to do it in the oven, so we still want the smoke. So I'll put a couple little dashes of liquid smoke on top of the chicken. This will ensure that the chicken has a great smoked flavor, just a little bit because it's strong. A little bit Leon Perrins, always just a touch. It'll give it that nice flavor. A little bit Louisiana hot sauce, just a couple touches, and that'll give it the nice spice that we're looking for. And then I always put a touch of chili powder. Of course, this comes to us from the Southwest, good Southwestern cooking. And the chili powder will give it the barbecued flavor. So we'll put some of the chili powder onto the chicken. And then a little granulated garlic, because we love the flavor of garlic. And then, of course, paprika for color, because paprika will help the chicken with a nice even color as it comes out of the oven. Now, I always put just a little touch of butter right on top of the chicken, because this will help it really get that nice crispy skin. Now, this is a buttery blend or a butter-flavored oil. I'm going to put right on top of the chicken skin, and I will cook it skin side up in about a 375-degree oven, or I guess for about an hour and a half, until the chicken becomes very, very nice and brown. Then I'll turn it over and allow the underside to cook and get that same nice crispiness. And I think I have some already done in the oven, so I'm going to pull it out and show you what it looks like. Let me get this, get these two towels here. Oh, yes. I'm going to put these in, and these will bake, as I say, for about an hour or so. Boy, look at here, look at here. I'll let you look at this while I close the oven door. If that's not beautiful barbecued chicken, now who would tell that this was not done right on a pit? And then I'll take my favorite barbecue sauce, and you can use whatever your favorite sauce is, and just go ahead and paint the chicken with the barbecued sauce. Of course, the paprika and and the chili powders and the liquid smoke have all come together now on top of this chicken to really give the flavor of an authentic outdoor barbecue. There's no way to get that taste any other way other than the way you've just seen. So try it out, and I think you'll be real surprised. So I'll put this out of our way here, and I'll put this here so that we can taste it just a little bit later. Well, I tell you, I wish you could come in and taste this with me, but you'll just have to wait a while. Okay, now what will we accompany any of these dishes with? Well, one of the things that I really enjoy, and I'm going to put this here because I like bean cooking. And, of course, in the South, we had a multitude of different beans and squashes that we love to use in our cooking. Here, fresh green beans. Not just green beans with new potatoes, green beans with smoked andouille and smoked sausage. And I'm using fresh little new potatoes in the pot here today, but whenever potatoes are out of season, I always go into the store, and I got some of these here. These are canned potatoes. You can see how nice and beautiful they are, nice and round. I always take the canned potatoes, open the can, and rinse them under ice-cold running water in a sieve or a colander for just a couple minutes, and I'll put them into the beans, and they're just beautiful. But this is Louisiana string beans cooked the Cajun way with new potatoes and, of course, andouille sausage. So we'll sample this a little later, too. Boy, I tell you, you're missing some great dishes today. Okay, I promised a little bit earlier, that I was going to bring on a great friend of mine, a guy who has in his hands over $5 million worth of great Tunica treasure. And we're going to talk about cooking, too. So I know Bill Day is creeping up the hallway somewhere. Hey, there.
Elito, achima chuma.
And I say, achoo, huh? Is that good?
Achuma, it means that's good.
Oh,
That's what
good.
that is.
Last time I said achuma, somebody said, oh, God bless.
God bless you, huh? Well, no, John, I smell red beans, I smell potatoes, I smell beans. I thought you were doing this classical Southern cooking today.
Well, this is as classical as I could get.
Man, this is Indian cooking. This ain't Southern. This is Indian.
Is this really Indian? I was trying to explain that everything that we do in the South today is given to us by the first Southerners, the Indians.
The only thing that's not Indian that you've done today is the chicken itself, and you just had turkey. It'd have been totally Indian.
So the Indians did cook a lot of turkey, but not chicken.
Oh yeah. There's a thing, that us Indians are very, very grateful to Columbus for. We're glad that, since he found the Caribbean, and he called us Indians because he thought he was looking for India. And we're glad he wasn't looking for turkey.
Man, I tell you, let's talk about these treasures for a while. I am so intrigued about the treasures. We talk about $5 million worth of artifacts, the most unbelievable collection of Indian as well as European artifacts ever
from the Louisiana colonial period.
From right here.
Yeah.
And you were good enough to just get a couple pieces out of that collection and bring to us today. And I'm amazed at this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, I'm a cook, and when I see this, I just want to put it on a fire and start cooking.
Well,
is that what it was?
That's what it was, and this was used for cooking. John, this was tinned on the inside, but let's go back. We're talking about something that was made in France in the early 1700s, carried across the Atlantic Ocean on a small wooden sailing ship, and then paddled up the Mississippi River, carried up the bank near Angola, and presented to a Tunica and as either a gift or trade goods. And the French needed salt and they needed horses. And so for salt or horses, you get the pot.
This is just so unbelievable to think that this piece actually came over in the early 1700s. Probably, Bienville may have even carried this
Bienville himself may have come up the bank and said to Cahura Jojillo, who was the chief at the time, this is especially for you.
That is unbelievable. And the tin inside made it perfect for
cooking.
Now, you were telling me earlier that this pot may have even been repaired at one time, which meant that a blacksmith may have
that
come
an
on.
itinerant blacksmith came up there, and because that was simple. They had the horses, and they had to shoe those horses. So the chief's pot got broken, and just call in the blacksmith and make it up. Nice thing about this, John, is it wasn't limited just to the metals, but there were ceramics too, some 2.5 tons of this material,
Is that right?
which were dug from graves of our ancestors and which we would rather have stayed there.
Right.
But this little piece, it's not glazed on the outside, it is on the inside, and while the glaze was still soft, they dropped some white glaze down in it, swirled it around, and said, now, what Indian wouldn't like to have that? So,
Well, you know, the important thing is that most people would think of this as an Indian piece of pottery, but in fact, this came over from Europe as a
it's
gift.
European made,
as a gift
and
to the
there are
Indians.
paintings of 18th century homes in France that show these identical pieces being used.
Like this particular piece here.
Yeah, this little piece of earthenware, we're not really sure whether this is Dutch or whether it's French, because there is both a Dutch painting that shows a pot exactly like this, and also a French painting that shows one exactly like this. But from Europe it came.
Well, it's just extraordinary to think that we in Louisiana have all of these artifacts dug up right here in Louisiana from a great, great nation of early Southerners, early Americans, and that museum is open now in
7 days a week.
7 days a week, and exactly where is it?
In Marksville on the Tunica-Biloxi Reservation, and that museum is built in the form of a temple mound because the Tunica were the last known temple mound builders, and so those things are symbolically reinterred. But I'll tell you something else. We were also corn raisers, and you got red beans, and you got rice, and you got to have some cornbread.
Well, let me tell you, you think you're surprising me, but let me surprise you for a second. Not only do I have corn, I realize that corn is probably the one dish that Americans in general associate with the Indians. Everybody thinks of corn first when you think of the foods of the Indians. Corn was a lot more than just food for the Indians.
More than just food. It is a spiritual food. It is the gift of the Creator to Indian people, period. It didn't grow in Europe. It didn't grow in Asia. Columbus sent a couple of Spaniards to Cuba, and they came back and said, hey, we found this great stuff. You can make flour out of it. You can bake it. You can store it. You can eat it green. They call it maize. But our Tunica name for it is haku asta.
Well, what we're going to do with it today is I'm going to make some cornbread, and not just any cornbread, but the cornbread of South Louisiana. Every culture had its own little way of doing cornbread. But you know what we did, what we Cajuns did, don't you?
Look, my mama was born herself in St. Martinville, so you're going to have to put some crackling in there.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put crackling in here. Now, what I have is cornmeal with about a cup of flour and 4 or 5 teaspoons of baking powder to get it nice and fluffy. And what I'm going to do while you stir this, you may know a lot about these Indian artifacts and all this great colonial stuff, but I'm going to show you how to make good cornbread this morning. We're going to put...
I don't want my wife to see me doing this because I'm going to get drafted. I can tell right now.
She's going to make you, I put 2 eggs into it, a little oil, because we want it nice and fluffy. I'll tell you, you do a great job with that.
Don't say that. She's going to hear this, and I never get the end of it.
And then, into the 2 eggs and oil in the cornmeal, I'm going to put cream. Whip that stuff up. Whip that stuff up. You know how it's done. You know, when we talk about the foods associated with the original Southerners, the American Indians, what about a dish like cochon de lait, the little suckling pigs of Louisiana? Was that actually a dish that the Indians did also?
Well, eventually. We didn't have the domestic pig here until DeSoto came through in 1541 and left some behind. Of course, we had the Abilena out there in the western part of the country.
Right.
But soon after that cochon got himself in Louisiana, it didn't take us long to adopt him, no. And, yeah, sure, I've seen been to many a boucherie with a Choctaw up in Mississippi, but they don't barbecue the pigs up there. They cut them up after that and make a dish called hothpony, which is pork cooked in with corn.
Cooked in with the corn,
yeah.
Right.
And so corn, you can have hothpony any day of the world at Philadelphia, Mississippi, and at Tucker and Bookcheetah and some of the other reservation areas. If I'm doing it right?
You're doing it perfect. Now, what I'm doing here, after I've added the little crackling, which is right here, I want to show you a couple of these. This is actually pork crackling, the skin with the meat on. We've chopped it up real fine and diced it into the cornbread. So why don't you dump it right into this black iron skillet?
I will, but I can't talk now. I'm eating crackling.
let's dump it right on in here. There you go. Okay.
You hold it now
Okay.
straight.
And we want to make sure that we can see this right down in there.
You know, when I was a little boy, my mama would be baking, and my little brother and I would fight over who was going to get the bowl and who was going to get the spoon.
Well, look, you can lick the bowl and the spoon.
No, I just think,
Now, let me tell you, we're going to bake this.
John, that tastes good already.
We're going to bake this for a couple minutes, I guess, about 30 minutes at 350 degrees or so. But I already have some done, naturally, so I'm going to pull up this great skillet of crackling cornbread. Look how nice this is. And this old cornbread knife. And right in the black iron skillet, this would have been used as bread, or we would have put sugar in it and actually used it as a little dessert cake also. So there were a lot of good uses for crackling cornbread, or cornbread in general, as the French called croquette de maïs in the early days. So what we have is a nice dish that can be used in many, many different ways, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a little taste of that crackling cornbread right there. How do you like that? Any good?
Shuma.
Bill, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming visiting with us, but even more important, bringing the Tunica treasures. Thank you so much.
We're delighted to share it with
And
you. Thank you, John.
I want to invite each of you to come back next week as we continue to cook up some of these great Taste of Louisiana. And who knows, looking at some more treasures. See you later. It's great. And just let me get a little bit. Can you taste the crackling in it?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing to do, huh?
It's under my house. That's really good. And you put flour in it.
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Anytime, any place. In Louisiana, we're really cooking.
The companion cookbook to A Taste of Louisiana is available for $22.95. The Evolution of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse features recipes and food history behind Louisiana's cuisine. This 352-page cookbook contains over 250 recipes, including those from this show. To order, call 1-800-973-7246 or write to the address on your screen.